Thank you and good morning. Thank you to the chair and the ranking member for this timely hearing. Like so many of us, I was shocked and appalled by the horrific attacks on the people of Israel by Hamas terrorists. It is our duty to ensure that that never again happens anywhere, and this hearing and the work of the administration is imperative. I'm in a unique position here. I'm both a member of this committee as well as the Armed Services Committee, and so I've received both classified as well as attended closed-door hearings to better understand the events that occurred on the ground, the preparation and planning leading up to these despicable attacks, and most importantly, the actions available to us going forward. Let me be clear, the response from the United States must be unequivocal and project American strength internationally. We stand with our ally Israel and are willing to use any of the tools available to us to support that end. But we're here today to discuss one of those tools, one that is undoubtedly important, and we must take a serious look at solutions to mitigate the ability of Iran and any other state sponsor of terrorism to finance these kinds of horrific attacks around the globe. So it's imperative to deny Hamas and Russia access to illicit funds. I would like to enter into the record, Mr. Chairman, an article from Axios. Actually, the Deputy Secretary of Treasury is en route to Europe. He will be speaking to the Royal United Services Institute in London this Friday, and it's specifically around the issues on sanctions against these sponsors of terrorism.
Without objection, so moved.
Thank you. As we've heard, it likely took multiple years to plan the coordinated and multifaceted attack on October 7th. That means that there was likely multiple years of funding in spite of strict U.S. sanctions. While we know that Hamas isn't using U.S.-based financial institutions, they are able to still engage in the financial sector writ large. Mr. Thomas, would you please speak to the array of financing options available to Iran in spite of the sanctions regime, and what else can the United States government do to stem that flow of illicit funds?
Thank you, Congressman. With respect to Iran's support for Hamas, this is a relationship that goes back many decades, nearly to the inception of Hamas as a group in the late 1980s. Traditionally, Iranian financial support for Hamas has been estimated at about $100 million a year, although, as we've heard, there have been press reports citing Israeli sources indicating that that support may have increased in recent years, and there have been numbers as high as $350 million. Of course, Iran's support for Hamas is not limited to financial support. The means by which Iran provides material support to Hamas vary, right? Clearly, the nature of these illicit transactions makes tracking them difficult, but from what we know, Iran relies both on smuggling via tunnels under the Gaza-Egypt border. The Egyptian government has cracked down on those in large part since 2013, but there are indications that trade continues. In terms of Iran's financial status abroad in general, which I imagine we'll discuss at length today, those funds, pursuant to U.S. law and regulations, are limited to the use to fund transactions involving non-sanctioned humanitarian trade.
So on that point, we've heard many of my colleagues on the other side emphasize that money is fungible and that the dollar spent on humanitarian aid is a dollar that is freed up from the Iranian government to spend on financing terrorism. However, it seems that can only be true if they ever intended to spend money on that in the first place. So, Mr. Thomas, do you believe that without the $6 billion in funds that Iran would otherwise provide this same aid to its people? Yes or no?
I think given the history of Iran's support for these groups and its support for these groups in spite of the humanitarian needs of the Iranian people, Iran has continued to provide support for terrorist groups regardless of the economic situation.
Is there any indication that links past increases in humanitarian aid to an increase in availability of Iranian funds to finance terrorism, given the numerous controls that are in place?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, that support has remained consistent for years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's time has expired.